It was a regular Monday morning at Bright Horizon Academy, one of California's most elite kindergarten schools. The kids, dressed in their colorful uniforms, played with blocks, scribbled on drawing sheets, and sang nursery rhymes. Teachers were preparing for another energetic week, unaware that today would bring an unusual surprise. At exactly 9 a.m., a futuristic Tesla Cybertruck pulled up at the school entrance. The principal, Mrs. Harper, glanced out the window and gasped. She had been informed last night about a new student's arrival, but she hadn't expected this. The door of the Cybertruck opened, and a man with a familiar face stepped out. The tall, charismatic figure of Elon Musk was instantly recognizable. The school's faculty whispered excitedly among themselves. What was the billionaire tech mogul doing here? Following behind him was a small boy with sharp blue eyes and an almost mechanical grace to his steps. He was none other than X Æ A-12 Musk, the child with a name as complex as his genetic lineage. Today was his first day at kindergarten. Mrs. Harper welcomed them warmly, trying to maintain composure. "Mr. Musk, we're honored to have you here. And this must be X." Elon Musk smiled. "Yep, he's excited to be here. He's never been in a classroom setting before, so this should be interesting." The faculty, though thrilled, couldn't help but wonder how a boy raised in an environment surrounded by AI, rockets, and neural networks would fit into a normal kindergarten class. But they soon realized nothing about X Æ A-12 was normal. Inside the vibrant kindergarten classroom, the teacher, Ms. Sullivan, was introducing numbers to the young students. She held up a card. "Okay, kids, who can tell me what number this is?" A tiny hand shot up before anyone else could respond. 42, X said confidently. The teacher smiled. "Very good. And do you know why the number 42 is important?" X tilted his head. "It's the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything, according to Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But in math, it's also significant in numerous sequences, including Catalan's triangle and Harshad numbers." The classroom went silent. The other kids stared at him, confused. Ms. Sullivan blinked. Did a 4-year-old just casually reference higher mathematics and pop culture in the same sentence? She cleared her throat and moved on. "All right, let's count from 1 to 10 together." The children chanted, 1, 2, 3. But X interrupted after 4. "Ms. Sullivan, did you know that 4 is the only number that has the same number of letters as its actual value in the English language?" he asked. Now the teacher was speechless. The other kids, though fascinated, were also slightly bewildered. One girl, Emma, turned to her friend and whispered, "Is he a robot?" Little did they know, the surprises were only beginning. A mind beyond his years. During snack time, X observed his classmates eating cookies and drinking milk. But instead of just munching away, he started explaining. "Did you know milk contains casein protein, which helps build muscle?" he told a boy sitting next to him. The kid blinked. "Huh." X took a bite of his cookie and continued. "Also, cookies release dopamine in your brain, making you feel happy. But too much sugar causes an insulin spike, which can lead to a crash later." By now, the kids had stopped eating and were just staring at him. Emma finally asked, "X, what do you do at home?" X thought for a second. "I help my dad test AI models and sometimes work on basic coding projects. Oh, and I like playing with Starship prototypes." Silence. The kids had no idea what he was talking about, but they were certain of one thing: X Æ A-12 Musk was not like any other kid they had ever met. The day continued with Ms. Sullivan attempting to engage the class with a simple alphabet exercise. She wrote A on the whiteboard and turned to the children. "All right, class. Who can tell me a word that starts with the letter A?" A few hands went up. Emma excitedly shouted apple. "Very good, Emma," Miss Sullivan praised. "Anyone else?" X Æ A-12 raised his hand. "Artificial intelligence." The teacher paused. "Well, that's quite advanced. But yes, AI does start with A." Encouraged, X continued. "Did you know artificial intelligence is transforming multiple industries, including healthcare, automotive, and finance? Neural networks, particularly deep learning models, have improved exponentially over the last decade, largely due to increased computational power and data availability. Miss Sullivan's marker slipped from her hand. The class stared in stunned silence. The teacher knew this was a unique child, but she hadn't expected this. Trying to regain control of the lesson, she moved to B. All right, kids, what about a word for B? This time, Emma hesitated before answering. Ball? Good. Miss Sullivan turned to X, almost afraid to ask. And UX? Blockchain. Now even the principal, who was observing the class, had to step inside. Blockchain? Miss Sullivan repeated. X nodded enthusiastically. Yes. Blockchain is a decentralized ledger technology that ensures transparency and security in transactions. It's crucial for the future of digital assets and is already revolutionizing industries like banking and logistics. A few kids clapped, though they had no idea what he was talking about. Miss Sullivan forced a smile. That's very interesting, X. Thank you. By the time the class reached Z, the other kids had mostly given up. While they had shouted words like zebra and zoo, X proudly stated 0-point energy. The teacher didn't even ask for an explanation this time. Finally, it was time for recess and the children eagerly ran outside to the playground. Most kids climbed on monkey bars, played tag, or built sandcastles. X, however, stood still, looking up at the sky. Emma, now curious about this strange new classmate, approached him. Why aren't you playing? X pointed upwards. I was calculating the probability of a satellite passing overhead right now. Emma frowned. Ha! X pulled out a small smartwatch strapped to his wrist. Based on current satellite orbits, there's a 72.3% chance that one is directly above us right now. Another boy, Liam, scratched his head. That's weird. X turned to him. Statistically speaking, what's weird is the way the swings work. They function based on the principles of pendulum motion dictated by the equation t equals 2 pi square root L/g, where t is the period, L is the length of the swing, and g is the acceleration due to gravity. Emma blinked. You talk funny. X smiled. I prefer to think of it as optimized communication. Meanwhile, the playground supervisor, Mr. Anderson, was watching with amusement. He had worked in schools for 15 years but had never encountered a kindergartner explaining physics equations. Wanting to test X further, he asked, Hey, kiddo. What's the fastest way to get from here to that fence over there? Most kids would answer, running. X, however, responded, that depends. If we ignore air resistance and other frictional forces, the shortest distance is a straight line. However, if we consider terrain, wind speed, and energy efficiency, different paths could be optimal. Are we including potential quantum tunneling? Mr. Anderson stared. Sure. X thought for a second. Then technically, the fastest way is to be at the fence instantly, assuming a probabilistic wave function collapse that allows for spontaneous position shift. Emma leaned toward Liam. I think he's an alien. Liam nodded. Or a tiny robot. Little did they know their kindergarten experience was about to become even more extraordinary. The highlight of the week at Bright Horizon Academy was Show and Tell Friday. It was a time when kids brought their favorite toys, books, or objects to share with the class. The children were excited as they took turns. Emma proudly displayed her stuffed unicorn. This is Sparkles. She's my favorite because she's soft and magical. Liam held up a dinosaur figurine. This is a T-Rex. It was the king of dinosaurs? The class cheered. Then it was X's turn. He walked to the front of the class carrying what looked like a small circuit board connected to a tiny glowing module. Miss Sullivan, already nervous from the previous lessons, took a deep breath. X held up his device. This is a quantum processor prototype I helped develop. Dead silence. Miss Sullivan cleared her throat. X, can you explain that in a way the class can understand? X nodded. Okay. Imagine you have a regular computer, right? It thinks in ones and zeros like a light switch that's either on or off. But a quantum computer can be both at the same time. That means it can solve problems much faster than a normal computer. Emma raised her hand. Is it magic? Nope, X said. It's quantum superposition and entanglement. Now, even Ms. Sullivan was interested. And where did you get this? I designed the model at home with Dad. He let me run simulations on Tesla's AI server. Principal Harper, who had just walked into the classroom, nearly choked on her coffee. What? The kids, however, were fascinated. Liam leaned forward. So, can it do cool things? X grinned. Yep. It can optimize space travel routes, improve AI learning models, and even simulate molecular structures for medical research. Emma clapped excitedly. Cool. Can it talk to aliens? X considered. Not yet. But I'm working on a radio signal enhancer that might help detect extraterrestrial communication patterns. The class burst into excitement, bombarding him with questions. How do spaceships work? Can we time travel? Are robots going to take over the world? For the first time, X felt at home. These kids might not understand everything he said, but they were curious. And curiosity, he thought, was the foundation of all great discoveries. Meanwhile, Principal Harper stepped aside to whisper to Ms. Sullivan, we might need to adjust our curriculum significantly. But the surprises weren't over yet. During free play, X noticed a Rubik's Cube sitting on a shelf. He picked it up and turned to Ms. Sullivan. This is a fun problem. He began twisting the cube rapidly. Within seconds, click, it was solved. Liam's jaw dropped. Whoa, do it again. X scrambled the cube and solved it again in 5 seconds. Ms. Sullivan, impressed but skeptical, asked, how did you do that so fast? X shrugged. It's just an algorithm. There are standard solving methods like CFOP and RU. But I prefer developing my own optimized paths. The teacher stared at him. Did a 4-year-old just casually reinvent Rubik's Cube solving algorithms? Then Principal Harper had an idea. She called in the school's math teacher, Mr. Thompson, who was known for his love of puzzles. X, would you like a challenge? She asked. X's eyes lit up. Yes. Mr. Thompson placed a Megaminx, a dodecahedron-shaped Rubik's puzzle, on the table. Most adults struggle with this one. Think you can solve it? X picked it up, examined the structure, and within 45 seconds, click, it was solved. The entire classroom erupted into cheers. Even Mr. Thompson, a trained mathematician, shook his head in disbelief. That is incredible. Miss Sullivan smiled at X. Well, I guess we have a new classroom genius. X Æ A-12, for the first time, felt something new. Not just intelligence, not just curiosity, but belonging. The following Monday, the excitement surrounding X Æ A-12 had only grown. The other kids were fascinated by him, though they still weren't entirely sure whether he was a tiny human, an alien, or a secret robot. Miss Sullivan had decided to start the day with a simple interactive lesson on the classroom's smartboard. She tapped the screen, but instead of displaying the lesson plan, the board glitched. The screen flickered, then froze. Oh no, Miss Sullivan muttered. She tried tapping a few buttons. Nothing worked. Principal Harper, who was visiting the classroom, sighed. This thing has been acting up for weeks. I'll call IT. X Æ A-12, sitting quietly at his desk, tilted his head. Would you like me to fix it? Ms. Sullivan chuckled nervously. Oh, X, that's sweet. But before she could finish, X had already climbed off his chair and approached the board. He pulled a small device from his backpack, something that looked suspiciously like a tiny custom-built laptop. The class watched in awe as X quickly plugged in a cable and started typing. Within seconds, the screen unfroze. It was just a minor software bug, he said. Your system had a memory leak causing buffer overflow. I patched it. Ms. Sullivan blinked. You patched it? X nodded. Yes. Also, I optimized the interface response time. It should be 37% faster now. Principal Harper gasped. Our IT department hasn't been able to fix this for months. Liam whispered to Emma. He's totally a robot. Emma whispered back. Or a wizard. That afternoon, something even more extraordinary happened. During nap time, though X was too busy reading a book on quantum mechanics to actually nap, the classroom door opened. Elon Musk walked in. The kid's eyes widened. Liam whispered excitedly, it's the Tesla guy. Miss Sullivan quickly straightened up. Mr. Musk. What a surprise. Elon grinned. Hey, just checking in on my little guy. Heard he reprogrammed your smartboard. Miss Sullivan let out a nervous laugh. Yes, he did. Elon ruffled X's hair. Good job, buddy. But next time, don't hack school equipment without asking. X looked up. I didn't hack it, Dad. I just improved it. Elon smirked. That's my boy. Principal Harper stepped forward. Mr. Musk, I have to say, we've never had a student like X before. He's beyond exceptional. Elon nodded. Yeah, he's a little ahead of the curve. Miss Sullivan hesitated, then asked, Mr. Musk, with all due respect, why did you enroll X in kindergarten? He's clearly operating at a much higher level. Elon chuckled. Oh, I know. He could probably be in college right now. But I wanted him to experience a normal childhood, make friends, play, be a kid. The teachers glanced at X, who was now casually sketching a blueprint for a Mars colony on his notepad. Normal childhood? Well, they could try. A month after X Æ A-12 joined Bright Horizon Academy, the school held its annual kindergarten science fair. It was usually a simple event. Kids made volcanoes with baking soda, grew bean sprouts in cups, or played with magnets. But this year they had X. The entire school was buzzing with excitement. Parents, teachers, and even a few reporters had shown up, all curious about what the son of Elon Musk might present. X stood next to his project wearing a small lab coat. His display, a working AI-powered robot. While the other kids had posters with crayons and glitter, X had a fully functional robotic assistant standing next to him. Ms. Sullivan approached hesitantly. X, what exactly is this? X grinned. This is QuantumBot. It's an autonomous AI assistant that can answer questions, solve problems, and even learn from conversations. It uses a hybrid neural network and quantum computing principles to process data faster than traditional AI models. Ms. Sullivan blinked. Right? And you built this? X nodded. Yep. I designed the base model at home, but I had to simplify some of the processing so it wouldn't violate the school's power regulations. Principal Harper, who had been listening, nearly fainted. The parents who had gathered around the project were equally shocked. A man in a suit, one of the judges, adjusted his glasses. You're telling me you built an AI-powered quantum processing robot? In kindergarten? X tilted his head. Well, I'm technically 4.5, so I had some time to learn. A little boy named Tyler pointed at the robot. Can it talk? X tapped a button on the robot's chest. The robot's eyes lit up. Hello, humans. I am QuantumBot. How may I assist you? The kids gasped. Emma clapped her hands. It talks. Liam leaned in. Can it dance? X nodded. Of course. He typed a command, and QuantumBot began to moonwalk across the floor. Now the entire room erupted into applause. Even Elon Musk, who had shown up to watch, whistled in appreciation. A judge turned to Principal Harper. We were not prepared for this. Principal Harper, still in shock, sighed. None of us were. After the science fair, X became a global sensation. His project went viral, and soon universities and tech companies were reaching out, wanting to meet him. But despite the attention, X continued attending kindergarten, playing on the swings, and talking to his classmates about rockets, AI, and space travel. One day, as he and Emma sat outside looking at the clouds, she asked, X, what do you want to be when you grow up? X thought for a moment. I don't know yet, but I do know I want to build things that help humanity. Emma smiled. That's cool. X looked up at the sky. Maybe I'll help Dad get people to Mars. Or maybe I'll build a new kind of AI that helps kids learn faster. Or maybe I'll do something nobody's thought of yet. Emma grinned. Well, whatever you do, I think you're awesome. X Æ A-12, for the first time, didn't respond with a complex scientific explanation. He just smiled.